This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 146th time, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last Reviewing Network Live of the spring of 2026, because when we meet back here again next Sunday night, it'll be the first day of summer. Although, if you've been around western Pennsylvania or Ohio pretty much today, it felt like summer because it was very warm for much of the day, and then a swath of strong to severe thunderstorms, tornado warnings, you name it, they came through here. Actually, we got really lucky because there was a tornado warning all the way down near Greensburg, and we live just above where the tornado warned area was. So we weren't under the tornado warning, but it got really, really close. So I was a little bit worried because we were out right as the storms were coming through, and I was really afraid that we weren't going to get back with our pets downstairs. But hey, we made it back. Everything's okay. It didn't really even storm all that much. There were a couple of lightning strikes, and it rained heavily, but yeah, we got really lucky up here. So hey, all is right with the world. And this week it was a pretty something that we hadn't had in a long time, and that was a stacked week of news. We had a lot of big stories come out this week worth talking about, all the way to the end of Friday with the story that we're more than likely going to start off with here because it's the biggest news story of the entire week in terms of, you know, something that we expected to happen. We were wishing it wasn't going to happen, but it happened. So we'll touch on that briefly because there's really not much more to add to it per se here, but before we do any of that, we do what we usually do here on the show, starting it off, and that is, of course, cover the weekend box office. And no real surprises here whatsoever. The movie that you expect to be number one is number one here, but there were some notable things happening within the top five itself, so let's dive on into it. Let's start off with the number 5 movie, one of the movies from last week that opened up. Opened at number 2 last week, but fell off big time this week. Masters of the Universe, which had a 71% drop-off from last weekend, bringing in $8.7 million this weekend for a 2-week total of $46.7 million. If you include worldwide numbers, it's up to $86.1 million, which is a little alarming considering the $200 million price tag this movie has for it, but judging by what Amazon and MGM put out last week, they don't really seem too concerned about the box office in general because they saw the reviews for this have been really good. Audiences overall have been really receptive to it, even though it's not showing in the box office in general. So more than likely, this is probably a series that's going to continue mostly with stuff going straight to streaming or somewhere on Prime Video. But I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed Masters of the Universe. I thought it was really good. So I'm glad to see that people are being receptive to it, even though the box office really isn't showing it. But yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed that it didn't have a much smaller drop off here. But hey, it could have been worse. It could have been the other movie that opened up last weekend that fell off big time. But we'll get to that in just a second. But moving on to number 4, we have The Backrooms still hanging in there. Once again, having another kind of big drop-off here, 57.1%, which wasn't as bad as last week's drop-off of, what was it, it was like 70, I think it was also 67.7%. It wasn't as bad, 68% drop-off, but it doesn't really matter for this movie because it already made back its budget in weekend number 1, which was $10 million, and it's made 16 times that. $660 million after 3 weeks. This weekend it brought in $11.3 million. Worldwide it's up to $248 million. So yeah, not a surprise at all. Making A24's biggest hit up to this point. So not much more you can really add to that one. But I still have yet to see it. So let's move on to the number 1 movie from last weekend, which dropped off big time this weekend, like I expected it to. Scary Movie, which dropped off 73% from last weekend $14.5 million this weekend, bringing its 2-week total to $84.6 million. It has already amassed $173 million worldwide, with a small budget of $35 million. So, yeah, not a shocker at all that this movie did well enough to make this drop off. Not a big deal for them, but of course Paramount is at the full focus of the world right now because if you've been living under a rock the last couple of days, you didn't see that on Friday the Department of Justice approved the Paramount Warner Bros. Merger. So it looks like it is indeed going to happen, which is absolutely horrible. But you people out there did this to yourself because you didn't heed the warnings at the election. You could have prevented this from happening, but no. You just couldn't handle a woman a president with boobs or a vagina as the president. No. We have to go back to 2016 to make you to make you regret your biggest mistake ever. I mean, now there are those possibilities that people will try to sue to stop this merger from happening. I know there's a bunch of lawsuits set to go out there, but at this point, why even bother trying to get your hopes up here? I mean, it's already going to happen. They let the stupid UFC fight that's happening as I'm recording right now happen, even though, the weather is a factor, and it's just such a terrible idea overall. Like, I mean, what's next? What's the next thing we're going to do here? I mean, are we going to have the 25th anniversary of 9/11? Is Dana White thinking of asking the president, being like, just hear this idea over here. Let's have a 25th anniversary September 11th fight on the remains of the World Trade Center. Like, it'll be gangbusters. Like, don't think that he hasn't thought of this idea already, because it would probably happen if this thing turns out to be successful as they think it's going to be, which, judging by how they think, it's probably going to be that way. But I mean, the thing that bugs me most about the Scary Movie is that the tagline for the movie is "Every line will be crossed." Though, if you're hearing a bunch of stories that are coming out since this movie's been released, lines weren't going to be crossed with the way that the Paramount was trying to get on the president's good side. I mean, they literally talked about stuff that they were going to do, MAGA jokes they were going to make that they had to cut out because they didn't want to offend the president and all that type of stuff, because they want to get this Warner Brothers merger going. It's just like, I mean, like, this is what the future of this is what the future is, people. You could have stopped this, but no. You couldn't do that. So, I mean, really, there's not much more I can really add to this whole thing. I mean, they could try to get your hopes up about, we're going to stop the merger because we're going to sue them. It's already too late. You just accept that it's going to happen. But yeah, we're all fucked at this point. I mean, this is just what it is. So let's go back to the box office and talk about some more positivity here, because number 2 this week, when we back up a couple of spots, is the movie that just won't go away. I mean, it is literally the stuff that's going on in this movie is literally happening with this film at the box office, and that is, of course, Obsession, which is still hanging in there. Moved back up 2 spots, $19 million, had the smallest drop-off of all the movies this weekend, 25.2% drop-off. $19 million after 5 weeks. It's brought in $188.3 million. Worldwide, it's up to $286 million. About to close in on the $200 million mark, and might make it all the way, possibly, to $250 million if it's careful, but if it's close enough. But where's the article I saw about the here it is. Yeah, Obsession has now, like I said, it's nearing $300 million worldwide and has surpassed the Blair Witch Project as the top-grossing Fest acquisition of all time. I mean, that's how historical this movie's success is right now. I mean, that's how great this movie is doing, and it will probably continue to do well over the next couple of weeks in general, because it's one of those movies that, like I said before, when this was coming out, it's the E.T. phenomenon here. It's a movie where people are just coming back to see this movie. You're seeing more theaters being added to this. I mean, this movie is doing gangbuster business right now, to the point where, by this point, this movie was supposed to be already out on digital. They did not think this movie was going to do well at all. So I'm going to be really surprised if this movie still makes it to Blu-ray within the next 2 months, because that's the releasing pattern we do now with physical media, where back in the day, it used to be like 4 to 5 months after the movie comes out in theaters, but now it's been like reduced down to 2 months. So I wouldn't be shocked if Obsession still makes it to Blu-ray sometime next month. But regardless, I'm gonna get it in my hands, no question about it. But that brings us to the #1 movie of the week, the #1 film this weekend, which is, of course, Disclosure Day, Steven Spielberg's latest movie. And I was actually kind of surprised to find out that this was actually the highest grossing Amblin movie that is for an opening weekend that he's ever had. It's the highest opening for Spielberg and Amblin Entertainment original title, not based on any previous IP. So that's the record that this has here. $44 million, which is not that bad at all for this movie, especially with a budget of $115 million, and worldwide it's up to $93 million. So it's going to make that money back easily. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if this makes it to... They said it's supposed to come around $300 million worldwide to make its money back at the box office, which, I mean, it's already doing that and then some here. So yeah, it should do well enough overall. The only thing that I think is really going to hurt it in the long run is the cinema score, which has a cinema score of B, which isn't bad, but I've said it before, an A- or an A is usually the grade that you want to have for a movie that's going to suggest repeat viewability overall in theaters in general, to keep the movie going here. So, and granted, this movie did have about $19 million of its $44 million on opening day, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's what it was. Yeah, $19.2 million. And as I mentioned with Backrooms, and also The Mandalorian, and also with Scary Movie, did it happen with Mandalorian and Grogu too? Yeah, it did, a little bit. But I'm looking at the numbers here. But yeah, usually you do your best business on Saturday and not on a Friday. But we've seen a lot of these movies having a really good Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday the numbers keep getting lower and lower. Ordinarily, Saturday is usually the best day when you have your best numbers coming in. But considering that this had a good Friday and then Saturday and Sunday, it kind of dipped off a little bit. That may suggest maybe a little bit of front-loading, perhaps, but then again, this, kind of like with Scary Movie the previous weekend, this is the only weekend that this movie really gets at the top spot, because, of course, next weekend it's all about Toy Story 5, a movie that will more than likely go ahead and clean up the box office in general here. I think they're saying projections are probably near 150 to 175 million right now. If the word of mouth gets good enough, I could see this movie breaking $200 million overall, regardless of what people think of the movie. But I've heard early word of mouth is really good on it, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with this film. I've liked all the Toy Story movies since then, but so I'm looking forward to seeing what that one does in particular. As for Disclosure Day, I did really enjoy it. I think it's better than War of the Worlds. It's nowhere near as good as Close Encounters or E.T., his other alien movies, but I think it's a really good movie. I think it's a film that is very well done. There are times when it gets a little too cheesy for its own good, plus the third act is not the best overall, but it's still nowhere near as bad as some of the other bad third act movies that, these movies tend to usually have. Like Knowing, I know was the big example I made in my review for this, that this thing literally has an ending similar to Knowing, except this one did it slightly better. Yeah, some of the CG wasn't the best overall, but there were still a lot of really cool shots in there. I mean, I talk about that great shot of the deer as the deer's eyes, and then on one side, and then they cut away. They move the camera around to the other side, and it's an alien. Like that's a cool shot, but again, why was that in the trailers? Like, why did you spoil that shot instead of just letting the movie show that off? It's just like, I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. But nevertheless, hey, did well enough to make the #1 spot. So, hey. Take it for what you will. And now it's all about Toy Story 5, which comes out on Sunday. Not Sunday, Friday for Father's Day, which will be next Sunday as well. So not only is it the first day of summer, but it's also Father's Day. So happy early Father's Day, everybody. But other than that, though, I don't see anything else. I know The Death of Robin Hood's coming out with Hugh Jackman, but I've yet to see one preview for that movie. So my guess is it's probably not going to do good business overall. Like, even on ESPN, because A24, they're coming off of the Backrooms, and you started seeing previews for that movie a couple weeks before that film came out on ESPN during the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs, which, by the way, before I do anything else, congratulations to the New York Knicks. After 53 years, you won your first NBA championship, and, yeah, turned New York City into an actual Gotham City. Like, I was actually kind of surprised that Batman wasn't around kicking people's butts overall, because it really would have felt like that would have been the time to do it. But then again, I did see one video where a guy dressed up in a Batman outfit was riding his motorcycle around. It was like a video on Twitter, but But yeah, I don't know if this movie, The Death of Robin Hood, is expected to make a whole lot of money overall, but a movie with Hugh Jackman from A24, you would think would have a little bit more of a boost, I would think, but then after that, of course, the last weekend of June is about Supergirl, which I'm seeing is getting some good early word of mouth in terms of the money that it might make at the box office. And then Jackass Best and Last is getting some marketing starting to pop up here, which I'm actually glad to see that. I'm curious. I will say this though: the trailers that I've seen for it don't instill me with a lot of confidence, because it really looks like a clip show mixed in with maybe some stuff that was deleted from the last Jackass movie. I don't know if this is a lot of this is new stuff here, but I don't know. But I mean, especially I really think this one might end up being the lowest grossing, not just because of that, but also the fact that this is the first one opening up in the middle of summertime. This is a movie that these movies do very well in the fall, or the last one, which opened up in February. But yeah, opening this up in the summertime on the weekend when you have Supergirl, I'm not too keen on that whole idea overall. But hey, these Jackass movies are usually good, but yeah, I have my concerns about how this movie's going to do. But we'll save that for the conversation in about 2 weeks' time when it comes out. So that is the weekend box office. We pretty much covered the biggest story already about the Paramount Warner Bros. Merger getting approved, which really not much more you can really add to it, except, we tried to tell you that this was going to happen, but you didn't listen. So let's take a look at some other stories that are going on in the world of entertainment, and there were a lot of good, juicy stories this week. Well, I'll say this for Hugh Jackman: if this Death of Robin Hood doesn't work out, he can always be Long John Silver with old man Ridley Scott at the helm. That was one of the early stories that broke out this week, was that Ridley Scott is on board to direct a movie adaptation of the Robert Louis Stevenson novel Treasure Island, with Hugh Jackman attached to play Long John Silver. Adolescent writer Jack Thorne is penning the script, with Scott and Michael Proust producing for Scott 3. Thorne will executive produce, and this is a project that's being taken out to all the movie studios, and some say that 20th Century is currently the Actually, I thought they were currently a lock to do that, but I'm reading this article here on Deadline Hollywood that says insiders say the 20th Century Studios' Scott's go-to studio that will release his next film, The Dog Stars, this August, did get a first look at it. It ultimately was a no from 20th, not because both parties didn't want to work together, but rather because 20th Century is a Disney division. Since Pirates of the Caribbean is a priority at Disney's live-action unit, why? Why is it still a priority at Disney's live-action unit? It's been 10 years since the last movie, and the last movie was fucking terrible. They didn't want a competing Pirates project and let it go to market. Again, why? This Treasure Island package is a new take on Stevenson's novel. That story followed a young boy who uncovers the map to a legendary buried treasure as he embarks on a perilous sea voyage to claim a hidden fortune, only to find himself locked in a deadly battle of wits with the charismatic and treacherous pirate Long John Silver. Since its publication in 1883, Treasure Island has sold more than 100 million copies worldwide and has been translated into over 50 languages, making it one of the most endearing and influential adventure novels ever written. John Musker and Ron Clements directed an animated adaptation at Disney, Treasure Planet, in which Joseph Gordon-Levitt voiced Jim Hawkins. Set in space and therefore leaning more towards science fiction, the film also featured the voices of Brian Murray as Long John Silver, Martin Short as the Robot Ben, and Emma Thompson as Captain Amelia. So yeah, they've been trying to get they're trying to get a new version of Treasure Island ready to go. They got a big star in Hugh Jackman, but it's Ridley Scott that I'm worried about. I mean, I've touched on it several times this last weekend alone, where, Ridley Scott is somebody who, he used to be an iconic guy back in the day, but nowadays, it really does seem like he's really running on fumes at this point. Like, this guy is getting up there in his age, and it's just honestly at this point, there's really nothing else for him to do. I mean, you could really just go out to pasture, end your career on a big note in general, and then this is what you keep doing, these movies that are not really all that great in general, and it just really does not work overall. Like, it makes no sense why you keep doing this stuff to yourself. But then again, I'm not the one making the decisions in Hollywood. I'm just the guy that's saying, you should probably not do this. And let's be honest, most people in Hollywood probably don't even know who the hell I am. So why would they listen to a guy like me? I mean, really, why would they listen to a guy like me, or a guy like anybody out there, but specifically me in particular? So, But I mean, I wouldn't think of it as a bad idea overall to see Hugh Jackman doing a version of Treasure Island. I think that could be really cool to see him do that. Seeing in a much different role here. Make us forget about the last time that he started as a pirate in Pan, where he had one of the greatest over the top performances ever. I mean, seriously, if you never saw him in Pan, his performance in that movie was just. It was gloriously terrible. I mean, it was one of the worst things. The movie was already bad enough, but once he comes on board and does this over-the-top performance as Blackbeard, I mean, it's just listen to some of this for yourself.
Sweet, gentle children, you who weep molten pearls of innocent tears, dry them, dear nippers, for I have sprung you from life's cruel dungeon. And hereby grant you liberty.
I mean, I had to take that from the Double Toasted review of this movie because that's the only clip I could find there. I wanted to find that specific clip right there, but yeah, Pan is not a good movie, but God bless Hugh Jackman. He is having the time of his life with that role. I mean, the part where he just goes like, I will give you liberty! Like, that alone is just like, I may not like this movie, but I love your over-the-top cheesiness of this performance, man. I gotta give you points for that, but I don't know. I want to see him. I kind of like to see him in a more serious pirate role, like as Long John Silver, but it's Ridley Scott I'm more worried about here. I just still think the guy is past his point at this point. I mean, there's nothing that I've seen from him over the last 10 years that makes me believe that Ridley Scott still has got what it takes, unlike somebody like a Steven Spielberg and all that. I just think Ridley Scott's right up there with guys like who was I just thinking of? Robert Zemeckis, James Cameron, Luc Besson. There's these guys that were pioneers back in the day, but haven't really done anything of noteworthiness since then that I could say is really good. Just saying. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about that one. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story I have here for you. Yep, that's right. The girl who's truly outrageous, truly outrageous, is back in a series. Not in a live-action movie, not like that god-awful 2015 Blumhouse version, we hope. But this comes then again from Deadline Hollywood, saying that Jem and the Holograms are making a comeback with an elevated live-action take of the beloved 1980s animated series in development at Amazon MGM, with Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan's studio-based Kiltered Films, who gave us Westworld and the recent series Fallout, producing. The project comes from Hasbro Entertainment, which took it out in late 2025. Amazon quickly emerged as the likely buyer, with Joy and Kilter's attachment rumored from early on. It took months for that to become official and for deals to close. Executive producing for the live-action Jem and the Hologram series are Joy, Nolan, and Athena Wickham for Kilter Films and Gabriel Morano for Hasbro Entertainment. The sale to Amazon comes 41 years after Jem and the Holograms animated series debuted in 1985. Designed to capitalize on the rise of music videos following the launch of MTV, the show follows record company owner Jerrica Benton and her alter ego Jem, lead singer of the rock group Jem and the Holograms. Includes a music video in every episode and a slew of original songs, including the theme, Truly Outrageous. Truly outrageous. The IP was previously unsuccessfully rebooted, with Universal Blumhouse's Jem and the Holograms live-action movie directed and produced by John M. Chu, and starring Aubrey Peoples in the title role. But during its 3-season run, Jem ranked as the most-watched cartoon syndicated series, outperforming such staples in the genre as Transformers and He-Man. Jem's popularity did not fade until after the 1988 finale, as it remained one of the most-watched kids programs throughout the 1990s, with album releases, comic book series, and GemCon, a fan-run convention now in its 20th year, keeping the legacy alive. So, I never grew up with Jem and the Holograms overall. I really just remember the show simply because of the theme song, and the fact that if you listen to the theme song closely, you could hear, like, the glass sound effects. That if you watch The Simpsons, you can hear you hear the glass sound effects in the opening here. I'll play a little bit of it again just to show you what I'm talking about. Like, listen closely. You can't hear it. You'd have to watch it for yourself and listen with a much better video of it and audio with it, but it literally is there. Like, I literally hear that glass sound effect every time something happens on The Simpsons, but But yeah, I never grew up with the original show. It was a little bit past my time, but I knew what it was. Let's put it this way. The first time I even knew about the show was because I saw it during the VH1 I Love the 80s, 1985 or 6. It was one of those two, but that was my first time ever knowing what this was. But I did watch the movie, and yeah, the movie is fucking terrible. So, hey, you get another opportunity to see if you can expand this franchise out here. So, again, not much more, really more to say, but no one else is the same except Jem is my name. Jem is my name. Jem. So, there you go. Moving on. Adding to the category of pointless sequels nobody was asking for, the long overdue, to some people, Romy and Michelle sequel is finally in production. And they put out a promo picture with Lisa Kudrow and Mira Sorvino on the set of the movie, so it is officially moving forward. But the good news is they're at least sending it to streaming, so they're not going to force people to go see this on the big screen. But still, is this really necessary? But the anticipated sequel to the 1997 cult comedy classic Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion is officially in production. Original stars Lisa Kudrow and Mira Sorvino are attached to star in the 20th Century Studios project, which will stream exclusively as a Hulu original. Both Kudrow and Sorvino took to social media to share a photo of themselves on set, sporting those quirky costumes that define their characters. They announced the reunion you've been waiting for. The Romy and Michelle sequel is now in production. It's been nearly 3 decades since Romy and Michelle returned to Tucson for their 10-year high school reunion. In the original film, the Los Angeles-based duo attempt to impress their former classmates by claiming they were successful businesswomen who invented Post-its, only for their elaborate plan to hilariously fall apart. Alan Cumming, Janine Garofalo, Cameron Manheim, and Julia Campbell are confirmed to reprise their roles alongside the duo. The ensemble cast will also include Keegan-Michael Key, Rob Hubbell, Breckin Meyer, Patrick Warburton, and Nathan Lee Graham in roles that are being kept under wraps. Mona May, the iconic costume designer behind the original wardrobe, is returning to the style of production. I am excited to be a part of this amazing project and keep the DNA of the characters and designs the fashions to be fun, as fabulous as the original film. May shared, Romy and Michelle are forever fashionistas. I am so excited to work with Lisa and Mira again. The 20th Century Studios project will be directed and produced by Tim Federle, Federle. I don't even know if I'm saying that name correctly. Federler? I'm going to go with Federler. And written by Robin Schiff, who created the characters and penned the 1997 original. Also producing is Lawrence Mark, who produced the original. Executive producers are Barry Kemp, who also executive produced on Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion. Isn't he dead? I could have sworn that's the creative coach. No, he's still alive. That's weird. I thought he died not too long ago, but I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. But the original was directed by David Merkin, of course, from The Simpsons, who actually directed a movie I really did like, Heartbreakers, with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sigourney Weaver, which came out a couple years later. But yeah, Barry Kemp, who also was executive producer on Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion, Sorvino, Kudrow, and Schiff. Kimberly McCullough serves as co-producer. I'm trying to remember what I thought of the original Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion, because I thought I remember liking it, but not really loving it as much as everybody else did. It was one of those movies that my sister liked more than I did. Well, obviously because she's a girl, and I really wasn't paying attention to girly stuff like that overall. But back then at least. But now I guess I've become more accustomed to it because of the way the world is right now. But not to say there's anything bad about that, but let me see if I can find my old review so I can see what I said about it. Because like I said, it's been a while since I thought about this movie, honestly. I guess I do remember liking it. And then again, I think it is simply because of the fact that it's directed by David Merkin, who, of course, is the guy behind stuff like that I really love. Like The Simpsons, The Critic, you know. This is a guy that usually does not really make a lot of bad stuff in general. And he's a guy that I really like as a filmmaker. He's also done a lot of TV that I've really liked. Larry Sanders Show. He did Get a Life, the Chris Elliott Show. But maybe that's why I really like that movie all that much. But like I said, I haven't seen it in a while. I haven't seen it probably since I did my review for Time About the Movies back in 2023. So, but I remember liking it. From my memories of it, I do remember liking it. I don't think it was one of those movies that I was kind of like caught up in the zeitgeist of it, although I did remember surprisingly enjoying it most simply because of the fact that it was directed by David Merkin, but also the fact that, it featured two very funny performances by Mira Sorvino and Lisa Kudrow in a cast that includes a lot of really good people I like in it. Janine Garofalo, Alan Cumming, Elaine Hendricks, Justin Theroux was in the movie, Cameron Manheim. I mean, these are all very good people, and I do remember, now that I'm thinking about it, I do remember liking that movie more overall. Now, does that mean I want to see a sequel now to it? Probably not, because I've seen what happens. I mean, I've touched on this so many times about how, you make sequels that come way past the point of the time when anybody really cares about it overall. But, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe this could actually turn, I don't know. It could turn out to be good, but I've just been let down by so many comedy sequels as of late, so I really am going into this with a lot more trepidation than most people probably are. But I will give it this. I think what they're starting to realize is that this is something that if they're gonna do it, it should go straight to streaming. That's what I feel like they should be doing with these with these long sequels coming way past the original. Unless it's a franchise that you can make a shit ton of money off of, don't send it to theaters. Like sending it to streaming, I think that's a good way to use streaming in general, because you could still get some notable people. You still get people coming into it because of the namesake, and you don't feel obligated to spend a lot of money and hope you can get it back in general. But I don't know. That's just my way of doing business. But again, nobody really listens to this in Hollywood, so they will probably just continue doing what they do best until that inevitable bubble bursts where people are just not coming to these sequels anymore. So hopefully that will be coming sooner rather than later. But all a good time. But let's go ahead and move on to our next story, which is besides the Paramount Warner Bros. Merger getting approved, this was easily the biggest story of the entire week. Things are changing in the world of Doctor Who. On Wednesday, when the story broke, there was a lot of speculation that after almost 20 years of this reboot series that they've been doing, the Doctor Who franchise as a whole was shutting down for good, especially with the way the last season ended, where for some reason the Doctor was reincarnated into Billy Piper, who played one of the assistants in the David Tennant series. But it's complicated, and we're going to try to talk about what's going to happen here, because it keeps changing as time has gone on in the last couple of days. So here's what we know for sure. So on Wednesday, the BBC announced that they were canceling the special Christmas episode of Doctor Who, while also saying that the showrunner for the show has been there since the very beginning of the reboot, Russell T Davies, and producer Bad Wolf are exiting the iconic sci-fi series. In an announcement on Wednesday, the BBC acknowledged that the news would be disappointing for fans after the broadcaster promised last year that it would air a spectacular special episode in 2026. The Doctor Who festive episode is somewhat of an institution in the UK, with previous favourites including David Tennant making his full debut as the Doctor in 2005's The Christmas Invasion. The exit of Davies and Bad Wolf, who signed up for Doctor Who as part of a major reboot in 2021, will result in the BBC putting the series out to competitive tender, which means that BBC Studios, who owns the rights to Doctor Who, or an independent producer, will have the opportunity to reinvent the beloved Time Lord. As part of securing the next phase of the show for future generations, and in line with the BBC's charter and agreement requirements, the BBC will put Doctor Who out to competitive tender this year. Doctor Who remains an important part of the BBC, and this tender underpins the BBC's continued commitment to Doctor Who, ensuring audiences will enjoy the show for years to come, the BBC said in a statement. After careful consideration, the BBC, Russell T Davies, and Bad Wolf have collectively decided not to go ahead with the previously announced Doctor Who Christmas episode. This decision was not taken lightly, as we know it would be disappointing for fans, but in order to set the show up for future series, it was decided that rather than bridge the gap with a one-off special, we are choosing to push forward to invest in the long-term future of the show, which ensures that when the TARDIS lands once more, it does so in all its glory. At the same time as the BBC statement, Davies posted on Instagram bidding farewell to the Doctor after his second spell as a showrunner. He told followers that he had not written a Christmas special script and no actor was ever approached to play the next Doctor. Davies has previously spoken about having such a story for the Christmas special, but there is some dispute about how much he had written. In February, Doctor Who composer Murray Gold told the Radio Times that Davies had written several versions of the script for the 2026 special. The changes on Doctor Who are part of an inauspicious period for the drama. Disney Plus exited as co-producer last year, Nkuti Gatwa quit as the Time Lord, and ratings floundered. It had led to existential questions for the series, but the BBC has reportedly made it clear that they remain committed to new episodes. Season 15 concluded on an ambiguous note, with Gatwa appearing to be regenerated into Billie Piper's Rose Tyler, a Doctor Who companion of yesteryear. It hoped that the 2026 Christmas special would tie up some loose ends. So yeah, if you didn't see the last season of Doctor Who, which I'm not a Doctor Who fan overall, the only episode I really watched from that season was the one that everyone kept talking about, the animated episode with Alan Cumming as the cartoon character who like came out and tried to take over the world and all that. I mean, that was a really good episode. A really good episode I saw that made me want to watch more episodes of it, but I'm not a big Doctor Who fan in general, but I had heard about what the about that final scene where Billie Piper's Rose Tyler comes back as supposedly the new Doctor, and it made everyone go like, huh? Like, it felt like the show itself wrote itself into a plot hole in general, because it really didn't feel like a lot of thought really went into that overall. Like, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense in general why they did that, and I think that the backlash against that kind of led to this whole thing becoming what it eventually became. But I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a big Doctor Who fan overall, so I can't really say for certain about how I feel about the show going down that route overall. But I mean, I don't know. But it's just something where it's just kind of like, I mean, I get where they're coming from here. I get that they're trying to invoke some new life into the series in general. And after a while, you do that overall, especially with somebody who I could have sworn Russell T Davies was somebody who was there from the very beginning. But in that article, it said that he was there for like it was his second run with the show. I thought he was there from the very beginning. He was there for like 5 years, and then he came back for the last couple of seasons. So he intertwined with Doctor Who, if you will, for a little bit there. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how to feel about this overall. But I think the whole idea that Doctor Who is going to end after this whole thing is something what people need to take a step back on here. I mean, it's like that with Star Trek right now. Everyone was saying, there isn't a new Star Trek project in the works right now. After all this stuff they were doing for Paramount Plus, what's going on? Like, I think what's going on is that they're trying to figure out how to keep both these franchises relevant while having all this stuff out there. I mean, Star Wars is currently going through that right now too, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's too big of a deal. I think they'll eventually get a new Doctor Who series off the ground pretty soon. So, but that was one of the big stories going on throughout much of the week in general here. But we do have some breaking news that just came within the last couple of minutes here, so I'll go ahead and get to that next. Yeah, breaking within the last 30 minutes as of the time of recording this, Dead by Daylight. They're making a movie version over at good old Blumhouse and Atomic Monster, and they've actually got a person to write the script for it, so it looks like it's finally moving forward here. This comes from Deadline Hollywood, that says, after 10 years, Dead by Daylight is getting the horror film treatment, with director Thordor Pazson helming the adaptation of the video game for Blumhouse Atomic Monster and Behavior Interactive. The Icelandic director of Netflix's The Valhalla Murders, The Damned, was named as the movie's director on Sunday during the Dead by Daylight 10th anniversary celebration in Montreal, a sold-out one-day event for fans of the hit horror multiplayer game. The Dead by Daylight video game, which features several crossovers with different horror franchises, allows one person to take on the persona of the killer and the other four to play as survivors. The killer has to hunt down the survivors and sacrifice them to a force known as the Entity, while the survivors have to avoid being caught and power up the exit gates by fixing a series of generators. There's no better moment than the 10th anniversary to share this news, says Jason Blum, founder and CEO of Blumhouse Atomic Monster. Thordor is the filmmaker we trust to carry Dead by Daylight from the screen you play on to the big screen you watch in theaters. Blum's co-founder and CEO James Wan says, 1 million people stepped into Dead by Daylight daily, and this adaptation brings them the world they love most. From Grenville to the Macmillan estate, Thordor understands that the terror only lands if you care about who's running. And the Dam proved he can make you feel the walls closing in. This is exactly the instinct this film needs on screen. So this is another one of those things where I haven't played this game, but I know what this game is. I've watched video reviews online, or people playing the video games, Markiplier and Jacksepticeye and all those guys playing those games. And yeah, it's a very interesting game in general. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to work out is in a motion picture, in a motion picture overall. And that's something that I think could play out very well if it works very well on the big screen. And if you're going to do it at one studio, Blumhouse and Atomic Monster seems like the company to do it with overall. But Then again, sometimes when you think they're good, and then they give you something as bad as The Wolfman, or something as bad as what was the more recent one they did that really wasn't that great? I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it ended up in my worst of the year list. Let me see. What's Blumhouse done recently? Because Wolfman was in there. Megan 2.0 is another one. I could throw that in there as well. Speak No Evil, Imaginary, Afraid with the evil AI, Night Swim. Yeah, every once in a while they don't usually put out the good stuff, but sometimes they put out great stuff. Case in point, what they've done with this year with Lee Cronin's The Mummy and Obsession, and even last year with Black Phone 2. So there is definitely the possibility for a lot of good here. So yeah, let's see what they can do with that. So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled news stories. So yeah, probably something that should be in the same category as the Romy and Michelle sequel we talked about earlier. But considering how much I like the last two movies, I'm not really as pumped the brakes on this particular project that's being announced here. Although I will say that I'm a little bit concerned that the two people behind the first two movies of this are not coming back as the directors, but we'll wait to see what happens here. But Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum are back on the beat with 24 Jump Street. The latest sequel in the comedy film franchise in the works at Sony Pictures, with Jonah Hill and Tatum and Ice Cube in talks to return, The Hollywood Reporter has confirmed. Now, what about 23 Jump Street, you might be asking? Well, there's another article that they put out that I'll get to in just a second, but Rodney Rothman, who will direct this movie from a script he wrote with Hill and Megan Malloy. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who helmed the first two movies, will return as producers alongside Neil H. Moritz and Tanya Landau. Also producing are Hill and Strong Baby Productions partner Matt Deans, along with Tatum and Free Association partner Reed Carolyn. No plot details have been shared, and it's unclear why the number 23 was skipped over in the current film's title, although Moritz's Instagram post in the script title page included the message, "It took so long to make we had to skip one." Rothman, who won an Oscar for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is credited for working on the script for 22 Jump Street, along with Michael Bacall and Orion Zuo. Lord and Miller, who helmed this year's Ryan Gosling-led Amazon MGM Studios hit Project Hail Mary, marked their live-action feature film's debut with 21 Jump Street, which had a script from Hill and Bacall, centering on police officers Schmidt and Jenko, Hill and Tatum, going undercover as high school students in an attempt to infiltrate a drug ring. Ice Cube played the grift Captain Dixon, who oversaw the program. 21 Jump Street surpassed $200 million at the global box office, while 22 Jump Street, which saw the pair disguising themselves as college students, was an even bigger hit, collecting $331 million worldwide. The films are based on the 21 Jump Street series that premiered on Fox in 1987 and ran for 5 seasons. Johnny Depp, who had a cameo in the first movie, starred in the show that counted Patrick Hasburg and Stephen J. Cannell as co-creators. Over the years, there have been talks about a third 21 Jump Street movie, including the possibility of a crossover with the Men in Black franchise, until that project was finally said to be dead. So, there's that story, and then the Hollywood Reporter put out another story about what happened to 23 Jump Street. And so this article says, the Hollywood Reporter learned Wednesday that the threequel was in development at Sony Pictures. It begged the question, what happened to 23 Jump Street, as the last film in the action comedy franchise was 22 Jump Street. The Hollywood Reporter asked Sony for more information on the reason behind the new installment's title, but did not hear back at the time of publication. Until the answer is revealed, and it honestly might not be until the film's release, there are definitely a few justifications fans can speculate about. For one, the creative team might be sticking to the meta nature of the franchise. Let me refresh your memory, as it has been more than a decade since the last installment came out. At the beginning of the 2014 pick, Jenko and Schmidt learned that Captain Dixon's led undercover police base had been moved across the street from the old Korean church at 21 Jump Street to the old Vietnamese church at the new address, the sequel's title, 22 Jump Street. "I can't believe the Koreans brought their church back," Jenko said as Schmidt adds, "Yeah, I mean, good thing there was an even bigger abandoned church directly across the street. Next year, we'll probably just be right back across the street, just next door," Tatum's character jokes. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Hill's character adds. The camera then pans to the vacant lot with a large sign that reads, "Coming soon, 23 Jump Street condominiums." It's safe to say those condominiums have likely been built in the past 12 years, and so many of the only vacant buildings or churches for the next undercover operation headquarters are 2 doors down. Another theory comes from a producer who worked on both the 2012 and the 2014 films, and is set to produce the new installment, Neil H. Moritz, who shared the titles page for 24 Jump Street on his Instagram Wednesday, which features a subtitle that read, "It took so long that we had to skip one." Moritz isn't wrong, as 12 years really is a lengthy amount of time between sequels, especially since the last one took 2 years to make. Fans will just have to wait to see what happens when our favorite chaotic undercover cop duos get to 24 Jump Street, and if they really did go to medical school or enlisted as foreign exchange students, according to the sequence of fake movie sequels at the end of 22 Jump Street. So there you go. That's some of the reasonings that people are saying that could be the reasoning why it's 24 Jump Street. And I like the idea that the movies are being named strictly because of where the secret headquarters is at. I think that would actually be pretty funny overall. But I sincerely doubt they probably are going to stick with the fake sequel idea that they had at the end of the last movie. Which, I mean, at this point, I would like to think it's going to continue that way. But again, we have to wait to see what happens. Like I said, it's been 12 years since the last movie, and this is one of those comedy sequels where I usually say, you know, I don't get excited for these as much anymore, but considering that I really do like the first two 21 Jump Street movies, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this overall. I hope they don't mess it up with just do a third one simply because of the namesake, but it's got a lot of the same people that made the other movies, and Phil Lord and Chris Miller at this point can do no wrong, so I'm more than looking forward to seeing what they do with it next. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next story we got here for you. Apple TV has landed a hot rom-com package with Jennifer Lawrence set to star and produce in. After an auction that saw 40 buyers put out offers between Chernin Entertainment landed rights, the highly sought spec 1 month mark not only landed an A-list star, but also found a studio to call home. Sources tell Deadline that Jennifer Lawrence, maybe I got her on the mind because I just saw her in Office Romance this week, which wasn't that bad overall. And I also saw her with a Knicks video that she did when they won the championship yesterday. So maybe that's why I got her on the mind. But then again, it's Jennifer Lopez, and you know her. There's probably a good reason why she's on my mind right now. But no disrespect to Jennifer Lawrence, you're still my number one, baby. But what's wrong with me? Sources tell Deadline that Jennifer Lawrence is attached to star and produce the romantic comedy, with Apple Original Films coming aboard following a competitive auction for the project. Sophie Fleur de Bourgien penned the script that Chernin Entertainment's David Reddy and Peter Chernin will produce. Lawrence will produce through his excellent Cadaver banner along with her partner Justine Srirachi. De Bourgien will executive produce as well as Brady Fujikawa, EVP of Chernin Entertainment. Fujikawa will also receive for Chernin. Deadline was the first to report Chernin landing the buzzy script following one of the biggest auctions in recent memory. The film's script drew interest from more than 40 producers, including major production companies with studio deals, independent financiers, and genre labels that would have been making their first foray into rom-coms. The project also attracted unsolicited offers from studios and streamers. High-profile actors and directors chased the project, trying to get meetings with producers, which should surprise no one after the producer feeding frenzy. Ultimately, Lawrence was the perfect fit, according to insiders. Once she was on, Apple wasn't far behind to come on the project. Insiders say producer in the studios will now work to find the right director for the film. The film follows two individuals. She has never made it past a month in a relationship, but he has never gone longer than a month without one. The auction was unlike anything Hollywood had seen post-strike, not only because of the amount of producers chasing, but also the secrecy going into it. Insiders say that in order to even receive a script, producers had to use Embershot as a website to secretly distribute the script without exposing the buyers. It currently has 892 views from potential producers, agents, and managers. Studio execs borrowed laptops or Embershot logins to get an early look. Several producers are in the mix, told Deadline. It was one of the best rom-com scripts in years. Chernin will now decide whether to take the studios without talent or add a movie star or two that were already chasing the spec to produce. The sale keeps Apple in business with not only Chernin, who had a first-look deal with the studio, but also with Lawrence, who just wrapped production on the Martin Scorsese period thriller What Happens at Night, which also stars Leonardo DiCaprio. Other Apple projects the two have worked on included Lawrence serving as star and producer of Causeway, and producer of the Peabody winning Apple original documentary Bread and Roses. Lawrence was most recently seen in the movie drama Die My Love opposite Robert Pattinson. So yeah, this is a big project that everyone was talking about, and it's a movie where they're touting it out as the next great romantic comedy in general here, and I mean, you got Jennifer Lawrence in it. I mean, say no more for me. I mean, I'll be there opening day just for that. I mean, just because I'm such a Jennifer Lawrence fan. But it's very interesting about the idea here. It's an interesting concept overall. She's never made it past a month in a relationship, and he's never gone longer than a month without one. So it kind of seems like it's in that same universe as something like No Hard Feelings was, and I really like No Hard Feelings. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know too much more about it, but it's definitely something I would definitely check out for certain. No question about that. So, speaking of other projects that should be getting some big considerations, this next one certainly should do that, especially considering that Warner Bros. Has dropped out on it. So this one has not officially been put out on Deadline Hollywood or Hollywood Reporter, Variety, my usual sources and all that. So I had to go to IGN, who has the article on this. But this originally was a story that first came out through Puck. And according to this article, it says that George Miller reportedly wants to make one more Mad Max movie and a TV show before selling the franchise. It says here, Mad Max mastermind George Miller has reportedly begun seeking out Hollywood studios in hopes of making one last Mad Max film, as well as a TV show, before he sells the rights to his universe to someone else. Details of what could be the end of one chapter for the post-apocalyptic film series come from Puck. The site reported that Miller has garnered interest from companies like Amazon, Universal, and Sony as he seeks to tell a few more stories set in the world of Mad Max. It's a plan that would, should everything work out, see the filmmaker make one more Mad Max movie and hopefully a TV show. Dennis Puck said he would sell the rights to the highest bidder. For now, however, nothing has been confirmed. There's no official information on what exactly is next for the franchise or when Miller would like to see something released, but today's news should come as bittersweet updates for the fans. The filmmaker first brought the Road Warrior to life with the release of the original Mad Max all the way back in 1979. Two sequels then arrived through the 80s, and in 2015 he returned to helm Mad Max Fury Road, while Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, eventually managed to launch in 2024. The Anya Taylor-Joy-led Furiosa prequel was praised by fans upon its release, but seemingly struggled to recoup costs during its time at the box office, leading many to believe that another Mad Max film may never leave the driveway. Puck reported that if Miller does work on more Mad Max, it at least won't be with Warner Bros., whom all previous movies were handled, because both its film and television division passed on his pitch. While what another Miller-made Mad Max movie will look like remains to be seen, the director gave fans a tease of some of the ideas he's had in the past. In the fall of the release of Fury Road, he teased an idea called Mad Max The Wasteland. Details on the particular projects have been mostly quiet since, though, with Tom Hardy, who played the titular character, saying in 2024 that he didn't think it would ever come to be. Rumors up to this point have painted the project as a prequel to Fury Road. So in terms of, I've touched on several directors that I've said that have gone past their prime and should be in the Hollywood retirement home already. But Steven Spielberg and George Miller are those two guys that I would honestly say, keep doing what you're doing, because you're still doing great at it. I mean, I love George Miller as a filmmaker, because this is a guy that, he is in his 80s right now. He's 81 years old, and he still makes these unique and incredible looking films. I mean, this is a guy that doesn't usually direct a whole lot of films in general to begin with, but he does not make a lot of bad movies overall. He makes a lot of films that I do really enjoy. Ones that aren't big hits, like Furiosa wasn't a big hit. I really like Furiosa a lot. It was one of my favorite movies from 2024. 3,000 Years of Longing was a really good movie with Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton in that movie. That was a movie that came and went, which is a shame because that movie is surprisingly really good. Fury Road's, of course, a great movie. I like Happy Feet 1. Happy Feet 2, not so much. He directed Babe Pig in the City, which is one of the greatest sequels I've ever seen in my life. And he also produced stuff like Flirting, Dead Calm, The Witches of Eastwick he did, The Twilight Zone, the movie where he did a great version of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet with John Lithgow. I mean, this is a guy who still has got it, even after all these years. And so, hell yeah, I would definitely love to see one more film in the Mad Max universe, but I'm really surprised that Warner Brothers has decided to just let the franchise go somewhere else. But, hey, maybe it's good, especially considering what's about to happen to Warner Brothers in the next couple of months. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's good for them to take Mad Max out to a studio that will let him do whatever the heck he wants. So, yeah, I say let him do it. Take it out to another studio, see what you can do with it. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to checking out what he does there. Hopefully a good studio will let him do it. So, yeah. I feel good about it, so I don't know how most people else will feel about it, but that's just my personal feeling on it. So, anyway, let's go ahead and move on to some more movie news. So we touched on this about a couple months ago when the first news came out that this was possibly going to happen, but it's now been officially confirmed that Chris Sanders, the creator of the world of Lilo and Stitch, is returning to direct the sequel to the live-action movie, which was a big blockbuster hit the previous year. This comes from the Hollywood Reporter, as it says that Chris Sanders, who co-created, co-wrote, and co-directed the original Lilo and Stitch animated movie, will now direct the sequel to its live-action mega hit. Once you're part of the Ohana, you're part of it in animation and live-action. Sanders, who also voiced the character Stitch in both animated and live-action form, was already deeply involved with the feature as its screenwriter. The sequel is now on the way to production, with shooting due to begin later this year. Jonathan Ehrlich, who produced the initial live-action remake, is back as producer via Rideback. The company's Ryan Halpern is executive producing. Stitch centers around a lonely girl who befriends a blue puppy that turns out to be an escaped alien engineered to be a weapon of mass destruction. The original movie produced such memorable lines as "Ohana means family, family means nobody gets left behind," and was followed by 2 direct-to-video sequels, Stitch the Movie and Stitch Has a Glitch, as well as the Lilo and Stitch TV series. Disney rebooted the title with the live-action feature thanks to families and Gen Zers who grew up on the original, powered to over $1 billion at the global box office, $423.7 million of that domestically. The sequel will be a brand new story. The 2025 film was directed by Dean Fleischer Camp of Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Chris Kikeano Kalani Bright, and Mike Van Ways were the writers. Sanders is a mighty name in the animation field. He co-wrote and co-directed the original How to Train Your Dragon with Dean DeBlas, and the two later went on to work together on the first How to Train Your Dragon. Sanders then co-wrote and co-directed The Cruise with Kirk D'Amico and solo-directed The Wild Robot, DreamWorks Animation's 2024 adaptation of the Chris Brown book that won 9 Annie Awards and scored 3 Oscar nominations. He's developing a sequel, The Wild Robot Escapes. The Stitch sequel will not be Sanders' live-action debut. That was with the 2020 adaptation of The Call of the Wild, which featured Harrison Ford, along with plenty of CGI animals, and likely a handy training ground for his new project. It really wasn't a lot of CGI animals. I mean, it was really the dog, and that movie isn't as bad as people make it out to be. I really don't care what anybody says. I like The Call of the Wild a lot. But then again, I like Chris Sanders a lot. I think he's a really good filmmaker. He very rarely makes anything terrible. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what new things he brings to the table here, especially with a new story for this new sequel in general. So, I mean, it really does feel like something that I could see potentially working with him, bringing him back on board in this. And I didn't hate the remake overall. I've had my piece on that one. I've talked about why people are over-hating it, especially with the ending and how completely wrong they are about how they ended. But that's just my take on that whole thing altogether. But this is confirming that he's coming back to direct this movie, so that means we can expect to see this movie in 2028. I believe that was the date they set for this a couple months ago. So there you go. Lilo and Stitch 2 will be directed by Chris Sanders. So let's go ahead and move on to the last news story I have for you this week. So last but not least, we have the latest news on the Monopoly movie that they've been trying to get made for so many years, and that's the fact that they're still trying to get it made, and they have no idea what they're doing. So instead of developing one new version of the Monopoly movie, they're developing multiple versions of the Monopoly movie. This comes once again from Deadline Hollywood, as it says here. Lionsgate, Lucky Chap, and Hasbro Entertainment are partnering with 2-star writing teams Neil Widener and Gavin James on the Minecraft movie, and Rebecca Angelo and Laura Shuka Blum from Dumb Money to flesh out ideas for a Monopoly movie based on the iconic board game, sources tell Deadline. Studio insiders stress that this is still in very early days and there's no telling which way things go with the project. But we're told they've been presented with 2 outlines and will commission 1 script from there. Stay tuned to see where this one lands. That's literally what they say here in the article here. But attempts at developing a Monopoly movie stretch back decades, over a decade alone in Lionsgate's case. The studio's most recent work on Monopoly comes from 2023's acquisition of Eve 1 from Hasbro, which gave it access to a library of 6,500 film and television titles. While Hasbro retained rights to many of its big projects at IP, like Transformers and Dungeons & Dragons, they sweetened the deal by affording Lionsgate the rights to develop Monopoly for the big screen. Lionsgate announced Lucky Chap's involvement at CinemaCon in 2024 on the heels of their blockbuster success with Barbie. The project gained further momentum when they attracted John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein to pen a script in March 2025, which did not go forward. Lionsgate first took a stab at adapting Monopoly in 2015, enlisting Golden Globe nominee Andrew Niccol to pen a script. Later, they developed another take with Kevin Hart, which would have reunited him with ride-along collaborator Tim Story. The push to bring Monopoly to the big screen began all the way back in 2008, when Universal set a 6-year strategic partnership with Hasbro to produce films based on its iconic game and toy brands. Ridley Scott was attached to direct at one point, though the box office failure of 2012's Battleship took the wind out of Universal's sails when it came to its game and fit-to-film initiative with Hasbro. The company reclaimed rights to Monopoly after its Universal deal expired, with producer Randall Emmerich briefly attempting to get a Monopoly movie off the ground thereafter. The world's most popular board game with 99% global awareness, Monopoly has sold nearly 500 million copies going back to 1935, and it's available in more than 100 countries across the globe. This is, of course, the real estate game where players attempt to bankrupt opponents through the buying, renting, and trading of properties. In tandem with development of the feature, Hasbro Entertainment has recently progressed development on an unscripted Netflix series for which Studio Lambert, the production company behind Peacock's hit game show The Traders, winning a bake-off to produce as of February, as we first reported. They're just talking about the people who made these projects overall. Neil Weiner and Gavin James are known for writing Warner Bros. Phenomenon, a Minecraft movie, one of the biggest video game adaptations of all time. I don't know why it was, but they're writing the Minecraft sequel and have worked on a film based on the Beyblade toy franchise for producer Jerry Bruckheimer. Last year, the duo sold their original feature pitch Fortune to Skydance in a competitive situation, with Bruckheimer attached to produce and Alan Richardson attached to star. They're currently also adapting the Neil Schusterman short story Dawn for Netflix, with Dylan Clark producing, as well as Jack and Daxter for Sony PlayStation, with Ruben Fleischer attached to direct. Rebecca Angelo and Laura Shuka Blum are the writers of the Clay Gillespie-helmed Dumb Money, the Sony film on the GameStop short squeeze of January 2021, and Universal's upcoming Murder, She Wrote, starring Jamie Lee Curtis. Writing film and television together since 2012, they first met as reporters at the Wall Street Journal. Other upcoming projects include Rise, about the historic women's national basketball team that paved the way for the creation of the WNBA, and the featured biopic of talent agent Sue Mengers that set up at Apple TV with Jennifer Lawrence starring. They're executive producers there and are also currently developing a series with Aggregate for Netflix. So yeah, this is one of those projects that they've been talking about for so many years, and something in that article caught my attention. The fact that they got the company that made Barbie, and all I can think to myself is, where's the Barbie sequel news? I mean, you had a movie based off of one of the biggest hits of 2023. You would think by now we would have at least some sequel in the works, but we haven't really heard a whole lot since then. I mean, there hasn't really been a whole lot of talks about it overall. I think largely because, there's been these negotiations with Greta Gerwig that kind of fallen apart, the director of that movie. But yeah, we haven't really heard a whole lot since then. The only thing we've really heard about was the fact that, the sequel was in early development all the way back in December of 2024. So that's over a year and a half. But the only Barbie project that we know is in the works right now is the one over at Universal with Illumination working on it, which is an animated movie. But, yeah, I just really thought about that when I read this again. Excuse me. But, yeah, as far as Monopoly goes, I really don't know how you can make this movie at this point here, because you have so many opportunities to make this movie, and yet you can't figure out an idea of how to make this movie work overall. It's just an idea that really should not be that hard to do, and yet, considering that it's taken nearly 20 years to get this project off the ground, it's like, do you really have, if you don't have an idea, why even bother trying to make the movie at this point? I mean, really, do you think one of these two writing teams is really going to be the ones that's going to make this movie go forward at this point? I just get a feeling that whoever turns that first script in, Lionsgate will probably just be like, look, we got to get this done here. Oh, we're going to lose the rights to this. So here, it's been approved. Make the movie. Yeah, I don't know if this actually gets made overall. So I just don't see how you can make a Monopoly movie work at this point. I mean, honestly, how can you make a Monopoly film work at this point? I guess there's only one way. Peter Dinklage as Moneybags, the Monopoly mascot here. Either you have Peter Dinklage as the main character, or get the F on out of here. So, that's all I got to say about that. So, that's the latest on that. So, let's go ahead and do some recommendations. It's a busy week in terms of new releases. A lot of big stuff coming out this week that are definitely worth checking out. The one I'm looking forward to the most is Hamilton, the Disney Plus documentary, the Disney documentary that premiered first on Disney Plus and then made it to theaters late last year, is finally getting an official home release on both 4K and Blu-ray, and that's my number one right there. That's the one I'm definitely looking forward to getting my hands on. But I'm also looking forward to getting Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, the sequel to Ready or Not. I really like that movie a lot. I thought it was very good. There are some other big new releases in particular, ones that I'm not really a big fan of. Scream 7 is one, especially the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Although, I am actually getting a copy of this largely because I saw it early on Macari. Somebody, I guess, got it early, and I thought, you know what, it's the Walmart exclusive set. I probably won't find it in my Walmart, so I figure, what the hell, I'll go ahead and put it and see if I can make an offer on it. And Who knows? Maybe he doesn't take it. If it doesn't, so be it. It was never meant to be. But ended up taking it. So yeah, I am getting that copy in the mail. Probably will never watch that movie again because I really wasn't a big fan of it because of just way too much cramming of nostalgic Nintendo stuff in it. But I mean, it's cool that I was able to win that without even winning at a price that I could afford it at. So there is that. But among other things coming out that are noteworthy, we have Day of the Dead coming out on 4K for the first time through Shout Factory. Eraser, the Schwarzenegger movie, coming out on 4K for the first time. The first season of A Night of Seven Kingdoms, the second Game of Thrones spin-off series, which I actually really enjoyed. I actually liked the way they took a more comedic approach to it. It actually did kind of fit into what that world was that they established there. It didn't feel out of place for the Game of Thrones universe that they had there, but definitely looking forward to seeing that, getting my hands on that pretty soon. There's a nice 4K Steelbook re-release up To Kill a Mockingbird. Of course, classic movie on that front there. What else do we got? Yumi and Tuscany is coming out on Blu-ray this week. A movie I really enjoyed that sadly nobody got to see. I mean, it came and went at the box office, and they were really pushing for that movie to be a big hit overall. It was a really good movie, but just nobody went to go see it, unfortunately. But I'm definitely looking forward to getting my hands on that pretty soon. It's a movie I really enjoyed, and I will really love to have that in my collection sooner rather than later. So lots of really good stuff coming out this week to check out. So definitely looking forward to getting my hands on a ton of stuff this week. So with all that said, that's going to wrap this episode of the Reviewing Network Live up. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe button, notification button. Check out our last episode we did, and check out our playlist below. And I will see you guys next week for another episode, the first Reviewing Network Live of summer 2026. So with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I am off, and I will see you guys next time. And until then, we are out.